So you learn about an idea, like the slowing of time as a rocket ship goes near the speed of light. Then you get to play with an interactive demonstration where you change the speed of that rocket ship and you see its clock ticking off time relative to the clock on Earth. And you see that they're ticking off time at different rates. So the idea, again, is not that you sit there passively, which is what you do with ordinary television, but rather you learn something and then you start to play with it with your fingers. You start to do problems. You get led through the solutions. We have a whole interesting way of allowing the student to ask questions. That's been a big criticism of digital education. How does a student ask a question? It's a tough problem. The way we've at least partially resolved it is we have a very robust visual sort of FAQ, menu-driven, where a student watches a lecture and then I can anticipate, as can most every faculty member in the world, 90 to 95% of the questions a student's going to think of after they watch me talk about, say, length contraction. So I have those questions and the student can pick it, and then I come on the screen in a different mode, not a lecture mode, a much more sort of intimate talking to the student mode and addressing those questions. So through this collection of experiences, the lectures with a lot of animation, the problems, the exercises with the video solutions, the visual FAQ, the interactive demonstration, review videos, discussion forums, live sessions that I do as well, it's a very robust experience, which I consider to be better than the usual experience that I would give students in my classes, say, at Columbia University.
Basically, just for the interactive TV community, this is, I would say, in some ways, an online DVR experience. It's something that it's completely on demand. You have a sort of a social TV aspect to it. I'm using terms in the industry where you not only provide the videos and the specific interactive problems that people can solve, but you also have a chat board. In some ways, it's a delayed social TV experience. You don't necessarily have live live tweets and things going on at the same time, or live chat at the same time, although I think in your live student sessions...
Yes, we do on those.
You do. I just missed one 2 days ago. I completely lost the date on that one.
Next Tuesday, there's another one.
All right, I'll be online. But there's a whole series of things that you can access in any order. It can be completely linear or non-linear.
Yes.
And you can also come into the entire platform in different ways. This is more fundamental explanation, which is there's the sort of tile cards of the unplugged.
Yeah, I should mention that. Thanks for bringing that up. So, so what I was describing was the deepest level of engagement when a student really wants to go whole hog, if you will, and learn a subject. Like the prototype we have is special relativity. And indeed, those materials that are available digitally, I do use in my classrooms at Columbia University, and other faculty members at various universities use them as well. So it's really at the level of a university course. But you're right, when you come to the site, World Science U offers you 3 levels of engagement based upon how deeply you want to dive and how much time you have. And the uppermost level of engagement is a series of tiles that are kind of artfully arrayed on the screen. Each one has a question on it, such as, what is time? What's an electron? What's quantum mechanics? What did string theory solve? Is string theory right? What's the notion of extra dimensions all about? So all of these kinds of questions are arrayed, and you click on a given question, and you get a 1 to 2 minute answer to that question. So it allows you to explore a whole range of science, but totally driven by what happens to pique your curiosity when you see this or that question on the screen. And then, of course, once you pick a question in a given area, the system then suggests other questions in that area to naturally fill out your understanding of the subject that you initially began to explore. So that you can do for 1 minute, 3 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, whatever. And that's been quite popular. We've been out now for 4 months, and it's just about 1 million views of those videos. And this is not cats playing piano, right? These are pretty heady ideas, but explained in a way that you don't really need mathematics. You just need to have curiosity and a mind that just is aligned with logical thinking, scientific thinking, but you don't need to have any background. The second tier of engagement we call short courses. And those are versions of the deeper university courses that we started with, but with all of the mathematics taken out. So the courses are built in a completely modular fashion, So it's very easy for us to extract out a completely seamless experience for the user, but eliminating those things that do require more background, like algebra or calculus. Some people love that stuff, some people don't. So if you want a completely conceptual, visual introduction to these ideas, then the short courses are the place for you to explore.
And then the third one, the university courses where you
University is the
can.
deepest one, yeah.
And I think from my, I have engaged myself in all of these things, and from what I can tell, you shot it all on a series of different days, perhaps. But then, yeah, you edited out the math problems. So the short courses and the university courses are essentially the same material, but
Not
more.
essentially, not essentially, they are. I mean,
They are, yeah,
we
but
were
more in
very
the university
diligent.
courses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was very diligent in building, these pilot courses where the special relativity course is something like 44 individual chapters, individual modules, and then the short course is something like 15 individual modules that are a subset of the 44 from the
Mm-hmm.
long course. Because you see, when I teach you the mathematics behind Einstein's ideas, I want to first teach you the concept, the basic essential idea first, and then put the mathematics in second. And I put those, of course, as two separate chapters, two separate modules. So to build the short course, I simply take out the second chapter or the third chapter associated with any given idea. So it's literally meant to be that you can take the short one and then you're inspired perhaps to go to the long one, and the long one is very familiar because 1/3 of the material you've already engaged with, but now you begin to see it in a new light because I'm going to overlay the mathematics on top of it.
Now, just to go back to what your inspiration was, and by the way, this is a completely free offering, and
Yes.
there are other university courses out there, Coursera, right? Uh, I can't even remember them all, but there are new emerging university platforms that are working with the big important universities, Stanford and Harvard, and hey, you could go to the online university from the UK. You can get stuff there too, which
Sure.
is a fabulous offering. But uh, you know, what were you trying to um, create a platform? Is your ultimate goal to create this experience so that you can start introducing new topics and bring in other professors, or
Yes.
is that
Oh,
the
yes. No, no.
longer, bigger goal? This is like is this something you want to charge for eventually? I mean, I hate to get directly to
No, no,
monetization,
please.
but
I'm
I have
happy to
some other
address all those.
questions,
Yeah,
believe
yeah,
me.
no, I'm happy to address all those. So
Okay.
yes, the courses that are there on the site and the Science Unplugged videos, as that first tier of engagement is called, they are all me at the moment. But that's merely because I was the guy willing to do all the initial work on
It's
this
a lot of
platform,
work, huge
in
amount of
order
work.
to get it going. But the vision, which we're now beginning to roll out, is indeed that there will be a whole collection of additional faculty, all of whom are top of the game, world-class researchers and educators. Because as opposed to some of the other platforms that you're describing, where their goal in some sense is to have, the largest spectrum of offerings from the greatest number of universities and a whole wealth of faculty from around the world, just put it all out there. Averages, you don't really need to do that, especially when it comes to science. You have the best 5, 10, 15 faculty in the world who are teaching the most important courses in physics, biology, chemistry, mathematics, and astronomy. Then you have a small, tight offering that is top-notch across the board. Rather than having individual faculty members at a given university who may not have a lot of experience in using television or the digital realm to its maximal impact, having them develop the courses, we have an internal team which is expert at producing broadcast television, internet experiences. And in that way, we can create tighter, sharper, best of class in every single offering that we put out there. So that's the vision behind the approach that we are taking. And in terms of charging, it's a very good question, because when you're not just accumulating material that others are providing, which is the mode for the other platforms that you're describing, but if you are a company dedicated to producing the content, that's a more intensive, more expensive undertaking. So certainly we are exploring ways of funding that to at least make it self-sustaining. And probably one of the things that will guide us in the near term is to create shorter experiences that are less expensive, easier for the individual user to get through all the material. Because one of the challenges that everyone has found with digital materials for courses, 95% of the people drop out before the end. There's a great aspirational sense that people want to learn, which is a great thing. But you know, when you got to pick up the kids from soccer, or when you have to go on that business trip to Austin and you live out there in Ketchikan, Alaska, right? These kind of life challenges require that you make priorities, and oftentimes your educational priorities fall to the bottom of the stack. It's quite natural. But if you have shorter, punchier offerings that can just allow someone to get through in a shorter period of time, I think the engagement tends to go up. So our likely model will be to focus on those shorter courses that I was describing and the science and plug type videos, with the university courses being sort of a course of a different color that may require other funding mechanisms, because it is such an intense process to create a full course offering with all of the elements that I was describing.
Are you suggesting that you'll invite specific scholars or scientists, professors to come in and shoot with your team that developed this platform, and so it'll have a consistent look and feel? Or do you think that this could be,
No, that's it. You don't even have to go to the other one. That's exactly right. And we've already begun. So we've already had 8 other faculty who have worked with World Science Festival, World Science U, to create short offerings in cosmology, in mathematics, in inflationary theory, in particle physics, in string theory. So we'll be rolling these out over time. But yes, that's exactly the idea.
And I want to actually hear about your team that puts all this together. I mean, how did you conceive, the group of you, how this was going to happen? Did you use a specific model, or I mean, it's very well produced. I have to compliment you on that. The coding behind it is very, what's the right word? I want to use water, but it's very flexible, and it works, and things move around and float. It has a kind of a HTML5 feel to it. I don't know if you know anything about that, but it's certainly well produced. And the second question to that is this something you think can translate to a connected TV? Like an LG or a Samsung, where there are a completely new platform, an interactive TV platform on there. That's more about distribution. But
Right.
what is behind putting together this whole platform? Did you just tell them, hey, let's just come up with the idea, I'm going to shoot a bunch of video, you figure it out? Or who was behind conceiving of how everything would work?
Yeah, so we had a small team at the World Science Festival that I headed up, and we looked at what was out there first, because the simpler thing would have been to use an existing platform. And we looked at what was out there, and we felt that the educational experience that we wanted the digital student to have could not be achieved with the existing platforms. We'd be the proverbial square peg in the round hole. We'd be trying to shove in the kind of content that we want to create into a platform that didn't really support it. So we had a very clear sense of the kind of content and the experience that we wanted the student to have. And that allowed us to very quickly wireframe the platform in terms of what sort of functionality it would require in order to deliver the kind of content. I rattled off the content that we had before, from the Science Unplugged videos to the short courses, the lectures, the demonstrations, the interactive experiences, and so forth. And so we were able to, in short order, wireframe the features that we wanted the platform to have. And then it was a matter of working with a really good design company and development company in order to execute the vision. And of course, as we went forward, we fine-tuned various things, changed various things, but it was never a sense of a separation between content and the platform. It was always a seamless thinking about, here's the content that we're going to be creating, and here's the way it's going to be delivered. And as our thinking about the content might evolve a little bit, so our thinking about the platform would evolve in sync, because they were, after all, one. So having a prototype course, which is really what drove this prototype course in special relativity, was very important, so that we weren't designing in a vacuum. that we would then fill in the platform with content after it existed. We were, in a sense, filling in the platform with content as we built the platform because we were thinking about them as one organic structure, not two separate things.
But what about have you thought about multi-platform distribution? Right now, it's on a PC,
Yep.
right? Are you thinking about interactive iPad, tablet experiences, connected TV?
Yep.
Uh,
Good. I mean, that's a very good question and a slightly hard one to answer. So from the get-go, we wanted this to be a multi-platform offering, and there was some decisions that were made that in the end wound up basically for cost reasons limiting the distinct platforms that it seamlessly works on. So, on an iPad, the system does work. It doesn't work quite as seamlessly as it does on a PC, but most of the functionality is there, but not all of it. On an iPhone, it's tough for this kind of functionality to seamlessly work on an iPhone, and that is a goal that ultimately we will do better at. But I would say this is not particularly good on an iPhone right now. In terms of other platforms, yes, the goal is that all this experience would be platform agnostic, ultimately. I don't care if you're sitting in front of a PC, an iPad, a cell phone, some hologram, a television set, who cares? I want you to be able to engage with this material, and it's, folks who have a far greater expertise in how all these things work and how you need to code them to make them work who will or will not ultimately make that possible. But yes, that is clearly the goal.
well, other emerging platforms are right now immersive, interactive, big screen theaters,
Yep.
right? And we follow that as well, where everything's projected on walls and
Yeah.
the entire audience in a room. That'd be very exciting
Yep.
someday. And well,
I mean, that's our aesthetic and our sensibility by virtue of the fact when you look at the lectures themselves, for instance, you won't see a blackboard or a whiteboard in sight, and yet I'm writing and drawing and projecting at will. And
you have an interactive TV. You're
yeah,
using a connected
that's
TV,
my
which I
point.
wanted to bring up because
Yep.
you have this fabulous system. I don't know
Yep.
what it is. You can say or not, but you have this pen, and obviously the software is somewhere in the cloud, I guess, or I don't think it's embedded on the TV itself. But you were able to bring up a nav board on the left side of the screen.
Yep.
You click it. Nobody can see what you're clicking on. It's completely invisible. All of a sudden, these great graphics show up in the way exactly where you want them. You never seem to make a mistake
Yeah.
on what you're bringing up. I mean, a little bit clicking here and then when you're doing maybe the problems and stuff, it's a little bit less formal.
Yep.
Uh,
Exactly.
and it's an interactive television, but it's kind of like, and I know how old you are, and you're not old enough to know who Winky Dink is probably, but Winky Dink, and the people in our industry will know, but Winky Dink was a show that was put together by, oh, I should know his name, the guy that used to do Joker's Wild. Who's that old TV host? Oh God, Mark. I can't remember his name. Really bad of me. I actually wrote a paper on it. But anyway, Winky Dink was this character in the 50s. It was black and white, and he was on TV. And he would get into scrapes. Like he would need to cross a mountain. He would fall down a ladder. He would need to save somebody. And the kids would be sent this plastic Wooby. It was called like a piece of acetate or something. It would go on the screen. The kids would buy for whatever it was a pen of some kind. They put this Wooby on the screen and they would draw the lines of the bridge or they would do something. So there's a little TV trivia for you.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was the first form of real interactive TV other than on radio. But your LCD that you're using reminded me to some extent of the origins of that because you're bringing up problems, you're explaining Lorentz contractions, you're explaining how Einstein figured out, or your whole simultaneity, how to understand simultaneity. But you're using a lot of graphics and other things. Tell me more about
Yeah.
why you're using all of those
Yeah,
materials and
yeah. The goal, the goal there was in some sense, it's not. It'd be fair to say that it was inspired by work that I did in television. I mean, there were Nova episodes where some ideas needed to be communicated, and there was just no way to communicate them without showing a little bit of math or a little bit of I mean, sometimes there's no way to get around it. But we didn't want ever to have me literally at a blackboard, on a television show.
It's an
That was,
interactive TV blackboard.
well, but I'm saying in the Nova sense, what did we do
Oh.
there? And what we did there was we played this game where I would write in air, and the symbols would appear in the air. So it kind of was cool. It didn't feel like a blackboard, and yet the idea was coming across. So I wanted something similar for this World Science U type experience, to something close to writing in the air. Now, we're not quite at a stage where we can do that, at least on large scale, for any reasonable amount of money. Of course, you can animate a hand motion, but good luck animating, 40,000 equations in a course and still be able to have any money left in the bank. So we decided to do the next best thing, which was to create these interactive touchscreens. And in fact, these 8-foot wide touchscreens, basically 8-foot wide iPads at some sense, where there's motion sensing technology that allows us to track my hand in real time and to have whatever I draw on the screen appear on the screen. And the reason I love this is because it takes the blackboard out of being this static environment where you write something and it sits there. Now the environment is such that you can write there if you'd like, but you can also bring up an animation if it's illustrating the point that you were just writing about, or you can bring up an interactive demonstration and give an example of how that demonstration works. So all of these uses now allow the traditional blackboard to come to life in a brand new way. So
is this something that your team developed?
Yeah.
And it's proprietary? Could it be licensed out as an education?
We used a variety of pieces and stuck them together in a way that worked really well. And, if you look very closely at the videos, you'll see a little duct tape here and there. We were not above, sticking things together with Velcro and tape if it was necessary. So, it was very much, again, a seat-of-the-pants approach to do a pretty slick-looking surface on which one could explain concepts, either visually or with equations or with demonstrations. So, I think it serves the philosophy well. Everything in the idea is push everything forward in the educational space. I mean, I like to say, just to finish, I like to say that we teachers have been standing in front of blackboards for 500 years. Why are we still standing in front of blackboards? Right? I mean, the world, technology has evolved. How come when I teach my students, I'm still in front of a blackboard, just like my forebears, 20 generations ago? And I love these interactive panels much more.
Well, one thing that I think that is missing is that, unless I'm mistaken.
Uh-oh, you about to criticize? Okay, good, go for it.
There's no, other than through chat boards,
yes,
or through live interactions with you, but there's no way for people perhaps to have their own interactive LCD behind them, shoot themselves, upload their videos. Perhaps the stories could be told more by their facial expressions, the way they indicate something on their own board, their LCD chalkboard. I mean, what about user-generated, content, and communicating and creating a community of physicists and emerging thinkers about physics. That's not a criticism. That's more like a what if.
We have a whole phase 2, phase 3 plan going forward, and the rate at which we'll roll it out will depend on a lot of things, including funding, of course. But one of the things that we especially want to do in the Science Unplugged portion of the experience, those again the 1 to 2 minute video answers to specific questions like what's a black hole or what's quantum physics. We want the users to be able to ask their own question, right? When you see a whole 500 or so questions, which there are right now, it inspires more questions. Mm-hmm. So what's your question? And these are questions that I want people to get their name associated with. So Joe Smith, asks some really cool question, or the question you were asking about the relationship between the slowing of time from Einstein and Faraday's work. Is there a connection? Cool question. Love to have it up there, have your name, and then have some answer. Now, the other side of it, of course, is many people out there in the world may have better explanations, different explanations, cooler explanations, complementary explanations to a given question. It'd be great to have those filmed, and you say the users can do that on their own and upload it to the site.
This
We'd like
webcam.
to have some vetting because you don't sort of want every answer to be Jesus or something. Maybe one or two Jesus is okay, but 500 might be a little bit too much. And I don't mean to pick on Jesus, Allah, Moses, Buddha, Krishna, Christ, any of those. There's just a limited place for that answering what is quantum mechanics. And it'd be great to have users input their own answers, and then when you're going through, you can see my answer, you can see whatever, Alan Guth, famous cosmologist, his answer, or you might see Max Tegmark, his answer, or Robert Dickraft. These are famous people in the world of physics. And then you can also see the general public's perspective on that'd be a very rich visual experience to go through. So I agree with you. That would be a great thing to do. And
I think from I've seen the numbers of questions. Well, you're obviously seeing the data yourself better. I saw one particular section on the short questions even. I think there was 1,000 questions or 1,000 comments.
1,000 comments from the users, yes.
Just on one
On one
small
question.
Yes. And you have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And you said you had 1 million views. I mean, I think, and you're probably able to see the data obviously better than I can because of this platform. But the amount of interest in all of these kinds of topics, in quantum physics, space-time theory, things like this, the amount of people who show up at lectures. Cosmos, the TV show that Fox and National Geographic did, apparently had the highest ratings ever for National Geographic in the history of all of their programs. There's a lot of passion and interest and creating perhaps or using this platform to create a community of people who are interested in all these places in one place as a network of the dissemination of education and perhaps even entertainment. Is this a direction that you're going in? Or is it really going to stay as an educational platform? Well, but you can tell that you know because you lecture all the time.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question, and it really ties into the larger vision. And the larger vision needs to bring in World Science Festival as opposed to just World Science U. So World Science Festival is the overarching entity within which this World Science U educational undertaking is taking place. But World Science Festival is interested in bringing the whole spectrum of science to general audiences. Again, not so much as an aggregator. That's not what we do. World Science Festival produces original program, original content, which is not to say that there isn't an important role for aggregating and linking and bringing in the wider world of science for the public programming that's out there, absolutely. But our core is to explain science in cool, entertaining, funny if it's appropriate, accessible, exciting ways, so that we are the place that people immediately think of when they have some science question or they hear about some development. And what did the World Science Festival say about that? What is the World Science Festival explanation of that? So that's where we are headed as an Uber organization. And World Science U, I think, will focus on the more educational side of that mission. But it plugs right in to the overarching mission, which is to change the way people engage with science.
Well, to some extent, I think, people always say, what business are you in? And you've already said you're in the business of creating a platform for science discussion. But, with this particular offering, you're asking philosophical questions.
True, yes.
What is the nature of free will?
Yes.
Is time real? I mean, that's kind of metaphysical.
Yeah.
To some extent, have you considered creating a social TV community interactive platform for other topics beyond science? Or do you have to have like the World Philosophy Festival or the World, I don't know.
No, we have actually discussed it, especially because
you've got the concept down.
Yeah, I mean, the CEO of this company, Tracy Day, who just by full disclosure and completely irrelevant for this conversation happens to be my wife, but her sweet spot, I mean, she came from the world of broadcast television. So her sweet spot was never science, because science has never been the core of broadcast television, right? She produced shows like This Week with David Brinkley, Nightline, all these heavy-hitting news programs, which in their heyday were very, very rich nonfiction programs that really delved deeply into subject matter. So she certainly has an interest in broadening out the offerings that this entity gives out to the world to be beyond the boundaries of what we would typically call science. Certainly, we're starting with science because that is the core brand, World Science Festival, after all. And but our view is that science touches on absolutely everything, right? Science is not just the stuff that you study in a science classroom. Science is the material that should be informing policy decisions when it comes to issues of climate change or genetically modified food or what it means to be human and can you patent a gene and what should we do with all the insights from nanoscience and nanotechnology? What's the way in which humans and technology will interface going forward? I mean, all of these issues are deeply scientific, but they're also deeply policy related. So, in a way, if science is your hub, there's nothing that's out of bounds any longer. Because all of these issues, from the philosophical to the sociological to the policy-driven to the historical, they have a connection to science because science is not a subject. Science is a perspective on truth.
uh, well, I guess one or two more questions because that's a good ending. But let me ask one or two more. Like we said earlier, this is a very on-demand offering, and you have a live component where you do, these live sessions where people ask questions in text. But what about something where it's live and people can submit questions and you showcase them on the screen? Maybe people solve a problem together. Is there an opportunity for collaborative thought experiments in an interactive way on the screen and happening now? Live
Yeah.
television and interactivity is a very compelling direction, and people are interested in that too.
Yeah, there absolutely is a place for it. And one of the things that we are doing this summer, we created a much smaller, tighter group of students to participate in what we call the World Science Youth Summer Session. We cut off enrollment at 5,000, whereas the other courses are, 70, 80,000. And that tighter group is the one that is more directly involved in these live sessions that I'm doing weekly, the one that you missed last Tuesday, but maybe we'll do again this Tuesday. And one of the things that we want to do with those live sessions, which we've not done yet, is experiment with some of the things that you're talking about. So the first 3 live sessions of this summer session were live streams where people would write in questions in real time, and I'd see those questions, and they'd also write in questions a day or two before if they had a burning question and they knew they wanted it to be asked or try to be addressed. But that's only one mode where I'm basically sitting there. The interaction is I'm seeing what they're saying and I'm responding to it, and whoa, just knocked my food on the floor. So that's the loop. Get excited about these ideas. So that was the loop that was happening there. But one of the things that we certainly could experiment with and want to is allow the world of students to watch a smaller group of students have a more direct engagement, where it could be that maybe one of these live streams, I set them a problem the night before, a tough problem. They think about it some, and they come in to the digital world at 12 o'clock on a Tuesday, Eastern Standard Time, and they, together with me, try to solve that problem, much as I would do in a classroom with 12 students if I was doing some kind of interactive engagement with them in real time, in real life. And I think there's a real opportunity because it's a great learning experience, even for the students who are not engaged in that group of 12, watching. You learn a lot by seeing what people do wrong. In fact, I think one of the greatest ways that you learn is by what you get wrong. If you get everything right, you might say, yeah, I really understood it, maybe. But if you get a lot wrong, and then you understand why you got it wrong, and then you get it right, you understand it better because you've gone down the unfortunate fox, you've gone down that rabbit hole and you've come back and you remember what went wrong and you know therefore more fully by contrast what goes in the right direction. So I think seeing that kind of engagement would be a great thing not only for the small number of students by design. You can't have 100 people work or 1,000 people working on anything. But if you have 1,000 people watching, 10 students working on something and seeing the errors and the corrections and the fine-tunings that get to the answer, yeah, I think it's a hugely valuable learning experience.
Uh, my last question is really what have you learned? You've done all these TV shows, you've written books, many books, you've done it the very traditional way. This is a new way of doing what you love. And have you learned anything? Has anything surprised you? Has anybody spoken out from some, forgotten corner of the globe? Has do you think that something has emerged above the fog of things that you already know? Not the fog, but like the body of knowledge that you already know. Has anything emerged out of this remote interactive television experience that's available
Yeah.
globally?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's something that I've learned from it per se, but I've had an idea confirmed, dramatically confirmed, which is that almost any idea, however difficult it might be, can be understood if you frame it with the correct visuals and you frame it with the correct explanation. And that, to me, has to be a guiding principle. There are no ideas that are too much for people to grasp. And it's the challenge for the faculty member, for the general person, for the thoughtful individual to come up with ways that allow a person from this, that, or that other perspective a way in to these wondrous ideas. And powerful visual. I mean, let me frame it this way. We are basically a species of storytellers, right? That's how we started, right around the fires out there in the savannah, telling stories. And if you take a scientific idea and frame it using the power of story and narrative, then the way in which people pay attention is dramatically different, and the way in which they take in the idea is far more potent than any other way of delivering content that I know of. And that's really what's guided us in all that we're doing.
But anyway, thank you very much. I really appreciate your being here. And of course, again, the platform is called World Science University, World Science U,
Yep.
which is part of the World Science Festival, which happens in New York every April. I wish you would bring it out to San Francisco. Although
We're thinking about it.